Well, I'm going to start by just giving a little bit more information about Jim and me. As you said, we're both members of the Fort Bend County Master Gardeners tree team. I'm the co-chair along with Allison DeWeese, and Jim leads our demonstration garden, the Tree Trail. And it has a number of samples of different kinds of trees. I believe we are at 21 trees in our tree trail, and that makes him the new trail boss. This presentation, I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea about our focus. So trees, there's a lot of different ways to look at trees, but our view is about trees in the home landscape. It's not really addressed to orchards or fruit trees, but a lot of the principles that we're going to present today could be applied to them as well. We're going to focus on what to do, not only with new trees, but with existing trees. So with that, I wanted to go through our agenda and just give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about, an intro to the value of trees in the home landscape, tree planting and selection. We're really upping the focus on which trees are the right trees to have in your landscape, including how to use the Texas A&M Forest Service, tree selection site, how to plant, how to care for trees after planting, and then a little bit more about the tree trail. And if you should come and visit us at the Extension Office Demonstration Gardens, what you'll see out there. So with that, we're going to start with Jim Stepp's favorite slide. Why do we want more trees?
That says it all.
It says it all. We want more trees. It's good for us and good for our families. But we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about the value of trees. So to start out, there's aesthetics. We like how they look. There's fall color, there's flowers. It might be energy conservation. You're shielding the west side of your house. You are covering or shading the air conditioner so that you can reap those benefits. Maybe it's screening. Maybe a neighbor, you would like to have more privacy from the neighbor. Maybe you need a windbreak. It is very windy, and it's been a very windy spring this year. And erosion control if you're on a hillside. We don't have a lot of steep hills around here, but we certainly do know about erosion control with all the water and rain that we get. So how do you save that energy? When the trees are placed properly, you can save energy. I think we all know that the shade on your house can really drop your electricity bill. It can do it in multiple ways. It can be shielding the house, shading the roof, shading the west side of your house, or as we mentioned before, shading your air conditioner so that it runs more efficiently. According to real estate agents, it has value, real monetary value for having mature trees in your yard. Even a small house with big, beautiful trees can be greatly enhanced in value. Do you want to live like this with nary a tree in sight? There are people, as Jim has pointed out, there are people who like this. But we're assuming that because you attended a class on tree care, you're not one of them. So today, just to kind of lay it out, what we're going to go through is we're going to put some focus on selection and what are some of the criteria, what do you look for? There's two real elements there, your plan for which tree is the right one, and also selection at the nursery, which specimen is a good one. Jim is going to be talking about planting, hole preparation, staking, watering, pruning, and long-term care. So what we want to go through first here is the right tree, right place, right purpose. You're going to see a little bit of repetition in here because we really want to drive home that you can save yourself a lot of time in maintenance if you pick the right tree for your landscape. One that isn't constantly dropping litter on the sidewalk that you've got to sweep up, or isn't brushing up against the house, making you have to trim it every year. Getting that right tree is worth the effort. So what's the first thing we wanted to think about? Why do you want to have a tree? What is your purpose? Are you trying to just get shade? Are you looking for flowers? Are you looking for trees that can work poolside? What is your need for, say, screening, either visual screening or noise screening? Do you want it because you know that trees enhance property value? Or maybe it's because you are living in a homeowners association neighborhood. They can often specify what kinds of trees you can have in the front yard. And knowing how to work within those guidelines can really help you when you're trying to consider foundation strength and shading and other factors. So we talk about some of the things you might want your trees to do. What about the things you don't want them to do? Well, you certainly don't want to have a large pine tree 6 feet from your foundation. It's going to cause problems. You don't want to have the same or oak tree right by the driveway or the sidewalk. You're going to end up having it buckle. You're going to end up causing a hazard to those who are using the driveway and the sidewalks. You don't want to have a trash generating tree. And by that, what I'm really thinking about, again, is the purpose. All trees are going to shed leaves or drop a few branches or that kind of thing. But you want to think about where you are putting this tree and what use you have. Do you have a beautiful giant crepe myrtle that all the flower petals drop off into the pool? Or even just a deciduous tree that for a month of the year, you're having to skim off all of the litter that's in the pool? Do you really want to be trimming and skimming instead of swimming? You want to be able to get in that pool and enjoy it and not plug up all your filters. You sure don't want sap from certain kinds of trees, pine trees, crepe myrtles, and some other trees dripping sap on your car. And although you may love to have a fruit tree, you don't want fruit drop on walkways, stains the walkways, causes a hazard for people walking through. And then we consider maintenance and location. So if you've got a giant tree in a tiny front yard, you're going to end up having branches against the house. You're going to end up having to trim that pretty often. Size. Also, what if that tree, big, beautiful tree, and a big chunk of it is over your neighbor's fence in their yard? They have the right to trim that right off at the property line. So think about what your situation is, and if you're willing to consider that kind of issue. Power lines. Do you have above ground overhead power lines? You also have to consider below ground. You also have to consider easement for utilities so that you're not having tree roots growing into utility lines. You want to think about acidity requirements. Is this particular tree one that really does benefit from having an acid soil? And you don't have an acid soil. You're going to be constantly working to amend, correct, and get it to survive. And water needs. It's not only the water needs of your tree, But think about the disparity between how much water your tree might need and how much water the plantings below it might need. So all of these things are things that you're going to want to consider. Don't have this on there, but you also want to consider, is your biggest joy vegetable gardening? But you've got a big tree that you're going to plant or have in your yard that shades it so much you don't really get good production. Or you've got such dense shade, like for a magnolia or even a live oak tree, that the turf grass will not grow. So these are all things that you just need to factor in to your plan. All right, this is just some fun pictures to help you think about that. Placement. Are there obstructions, roof lines, walls, fences, power lines? Think about that and think about the mature size of your tree. You buy a live oak tree and it's about 6 feet across and 8 feet tall in its pot. You think, wow, I got plenty of room. How big is that going to get? Do you know how big a live oak tree will get at full maturity? 60 feet tall and 100 feet wide. You got to think about that. Spacing, same example. You plant a row of oak trees that all get to a breadth of 50 feet, and you only plant them 10 or 12 feet apart. They're not going to work. They're going to end up growing together. The branches rub, introduces disease, branches break off. Think about mature size. Also, your environmental needs. Yes, test your soil. Do you know if your soil is neutral or slightly alkaline or acidic? Do you know if it is heavy, dense clay that's going to be like a bowl that your poor tree is going to have trouble because it can't drain the water off well? You need to think about all of those factors when you look at your site and get some data and know how to do it. And how do you do that? Go to Texas AgriLife, Google soil samples, and a form will pop up. They'll tell you exactly how to do it and where to send it. It's easy. Signs of stress. If you aren't following some of the guidelines we've got today to share with you, you're going to have some problems. Root girdling, splitting bark, dropping limbs. It's always better to have a plan ahead of time for success so that you minimize your work and maintenance later. Here are some pictures that just kind of illustrate some of these issues. A tree planted right up against the fence, and granted, this can happen from, squirrels. So you're not always feeling like you're in control of where that tree will be, but you got to think about it when one sprouts up before you decide, pull it or keep it. Is it in a good place? Likewise, planting, I call this little space here between the sidewalk and the road, the neutral ground. I don't know what everybody calls that, but planting an oak tree or a large specimen tree, an elm tree, etc., in that area is just going to cause problems for you, for the structure, for the neighborhood, also for the tree. It's hard for them to thrive in that kind of environment. So you start with a plan. You look at your lot and your house and driveway and concrete and start thinking about, what do you want to do? What is the purpose? Is it, like we talked about, is it shade, ornament? Is it environmental? What is your purpose in the type of tree? And that's how you start making your plan. What size is your planting area? If you have a 1/4 acre lot, you are probably living in a house that's 50, 60 plus years old. A lot of the newer neighborhoods have smaller lots, 1/6 acre now. And so you don't have as much room for large specimen plants. Do you have the adequate sun and moisture and hardiness that you need Is this particular tree commonly susceptible to pests or disease? And is there room for growth? How big, again, I can't say it enough. What is the mature size of your tree? And we'll show you a way to find that out in just a moment. So again, just emphasizing, these can be sources of difficulty, sources of problems. Avoid planting too close to your house. Foundation, roof issues, walls, fences being pushed down, etc. So here's a little exercise. You buy a tree at the nursery, you have this nifty fence. There's plenty of room for this little tree to grow. It could triple in size, right? But it's not gonna just triple in size. It might grow tenfold as big as the specimen that you have in the nursery. I see Jim and I both work the help desk here at the Fort Bend County Master Gardener's Help Desk, and we see people sending in photographs where they planted a specimen shade tree 3 feet from a fence. It's just not gonna work out. So you gotta think, you gotta plan. Another, what is too close? You've got a live oak. It's not very big, so you plant it 20 feet away from the power lines. Is 20 feet away enough for a live oak? Live oaks get 80 to 100 feet across, maybe not in my lifetime, but eventually they do. And that means if they're 80 feet, you need 40 feet away from the power lines, plus the 10 feet of utility easement. So that's 50 feet. Do you have room for that trunk to be 50 feet away from the power lines? Just part of the equation as you pick the right tree. So now we're looking at this chart again, just giving you a little bit of idea of how to space your trees. If you have a utility line in your front or backyard or side or wherever, there are trees you can select that are small, and they don't get more than 20 feet tall, and they can be planted under or near those power lines. But as that tree specimen gets larger, it's got to move. It's got to be moving out from the power lines to have more room to grow without having to, without having to do a lot of work or having to look at the poor thing being butchered. So this is an exercise. 1 6-acre lots are 85 by 85 feet. If you put a 2,000 square foot house plus a garage, a driveway, etc., is your live oak tree gonna fit? Hopefully you're all out there saying no, it's not gonna fit. You'd have to plant it in your kitchen and then it would still cover the entire lot. So you might want to look at something more mid-sized, like an American holly that only grows to about 30 feet wide. In the back, where you only have about 20 feet by 20 feet, you might want to consider a cherry laurel, a small size tree. So I wanted to show this to you so that you could gauge, we think, oh, I have space, but when you get out the measuring tape, you might be able to make better choices on what selection of tree that you want. So with that, I wanted to show you a list of some of the good options for small spaces with a bunch of small trees. The ones with an E out to the side are evergreen. So if you're looking for screening, they're good for that. If you're looking for dense shade, they're good for that. So on the left top is a crepe myrtle. And I think a lot of us are familiar with those, and crepe myrtles can come in a lot of sizes. So an acoma, beautiful white tree, which this picture might be an acoma, is wider than it is tall. It only gets to about 10 feet tall. but it gets to be about 12 to 15 feet wide. Are there crepe myrtles taller than that? Yes. A Muskogee is as tall as 35 feet, so it's 3.5 times taller than an Acoma. Keep that in mind as you're choosing a cherry laurel. Are you willing to have the fruit of the crabapple, loquat, or Mexican plum drop in its location? Do you need to put it more to the side in the grass so that people aren't walking on the fruit as it falls? And let's see, what about acid loving? So acid soil enables the plants that need it to take up nutrients effectively. Without it, the tree struggles and can succumb to disease. Which ones are those? Well, cherry laurel, little gem magnolia, and saucer magnolia all appreciate having acid soil. Does it mean that they won't thrive in, say, neutral 7.0 pH? No, but you might need to treat them with some special products to help with the acidity. Okay, we're quickly going to go through an example of the tree selector. So the tree selector, I want you to make note of how wonderful it is to use. First thing you do is put in the location, Fort Bend County. That's important to know which trees thrive here versus, say, in Big Bend National Park in West Texas. Do you have a small area? Do you want a medium-sized tree? Do you want an evergreen tree? And you want it maybe to be a Texas native. By the way, on this question number 4, you can check more than one. And on this one, option 5, I will plant my tree in a place that is poorly drained or stays wet. We have some of that conditions in Fort Bend County. So with that, when we show trees, it comes up with some very nice trees. American holly is a beautiful landscape tree for neighborhoods. And it makes berries, which are pretty at Christmas time, and everybody enjoys getting to see these. So with this, I want to go see if I can get myself back to the presentation. So Jim is going to talk a little bit more about tree selection, but the primary thing is when you go to the nursery, make sure it doesn't have wounds, it doesn't have disease, powdery mildew, bugs, aphids, browning leaves, it doesn't have bound roots or wounds on the tree. So he's going to talk about that a little bit more. And Jim, turn it over to you.
How do I go back?
You can go like that.
I guess I'm up. I want to talk about tree selection a little bit. If you look, we're talking about small trees now, probably 6 to 8 feet tall. But what you want for most trees, not a crepe myrtle, for some reason or other, crepe myrtles classified as trees. But what I'm talking about here is a single trunk tree. And what you need to look for is something that's got a good central leader, good central root like that. And you look at it, it needs to be a nice, healthy growth. Look at it. If it's got yellow leaves or it's got leaves that are getting brown around this, don't buy it. It's not been taken care of very well. And you can look at it and tell if it's very healthy. You also need to pull the tree out of the pot and look at it, because you have no idea how long that tree has been in that pot. If it's been in there very long, guys, can they see this pointer I'm using? Can anybody tell me if they can see the pointer?
Rochelle or Susan, can you see the pointer?
I do not.
I saw
I've
it.
seen
I
it
see
earlier.
it. I
Okay.
see
I
it.
see it now. It's small.
But let's stop here a minute and see if you got any questions for Stacy about what she just presented. This is
Nope.
probably a good time for questions. Are there any?
No questions yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is a great opportunity to remind everyone to drop your questions into the main chat and we will get them asked.
Am I back on?
You bet.
You're back on.
All right, so if you look at this one has been in the pot way too long. I wouldn't buy this tree. You might be able to save it. It's not worth it. Go find another tree there and pull it out. This one has been in the pot way, way, way too long. These central roots, these things here, if you don't take care of the curly roots, then that tree will probably die within about 2 or 3 years. And unfortunately, it's probably only guaranteed for 6 months. Next slide. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about planting the tree. It takes me a while to do this, so we just sit back and relax. This is a picture, but I want to point out about this picture. I think it comes from Arboretum Society or something, but
Arbor Day.
if you go online and Google planting a tree, you'll get a lot of different pictures and a lot of different sort of methods, but they all are pretty much the same as far as how the hole is dug. Most of the things that are different is exactly how the root ball is handled. But for this one, it's a good example. The first thing you're going to do is you need to dig a nice hole. You do not want to go down any deeper than the bottom of the root ball. Fact of the matter, I suggest you don't even go down that far, because you don't want or this right here is the top of the container that the tree was in. You do not want that to be below grade. And so you want a good firm foundation for it to sit on. Now, if you look at this picture, real carefully, you'll see right there, if you can see my pointer, that's where the root ball is setting. And you'll note there's a little ditch around here. And that's good for letting the roots go and expand, because they won't need to get out of this hole. But after you dig the hole, what you do is you fill it full of water. You go in and you have dinner, wait until the next day, go back out, and if it's still got water in it, then you might want to plant someplace else. This is clay soil, and a lot of trees do not like to sit in water. Another option to do is get a tree that loves water, so because it's going to get real wet.
Like a cypress or a cedar or a willow.
Anything that likes water, but
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to fill the hole when you do put the tree in. I'm not sure how to do this. You want the top of the root ball level with ground or slightly higher. I suggest slightly higher. I'm going to talk about what you do with the root ball later, but no matter what you do with the root ball, it is probably going to settle a little. And if it settles a little, then if you put it here, you may end up with it down there. We planted a bunch of trees over at Seaborn Park a couple of maybe a year or 2 years ago, and a lot of them sunk and had to be pulled back up because they were ended up just too deep.
Okay.
Another thing that's, if you go online and look at planting a tree, you will find sites that tell you to amend the soil. You do not want to amend the soil here. Some places where they have a different kind of soil, amending the soil might be good, but you don't want to amend the soil, because this tree has to live in our black gumbo. I mean, if you put in here too much amendment, it's nice, then the roots just decide, well, it's comfortable here, I think I'll stay here. And then they start going around and around and around. And the next thing you know, you've got lots of problems. Once you get the tree in there, set where you want it, then you take and you fill the hole about a third of the way up with the original soil. Then wet it down. Don't stomp it down, but wet it down. Wait a few minutes, and then go up another third, and then fill it with water again, and then up to the top and fill it with water. Once you get up to here, you should have some soil left over. So what you want to do, it's not so good. You want to build a nice soil ring around. One of the purposes of that soil ring will eventually disappear. But what the first is that, so when you water it, then you're watering in here and it's not running off. And then you're going to should mulch it around 3 or 4 inches, keeping the mulch away from the trunk. If you look at this picture, the mulch is about, I don't know, 4 inches. I don't know. The only thing I don't like about this picture is this can right there. If you do all this, that can's not necessary, because I don't care who your yard man is. He's not going to go up against that tree. He's going to go out here. But anyway, but if you do that, first of all, you're going to have to cut it, but you're going to have to remove it pretty soon because you don't want it to girdle the tree. So I wouldn't put it around there, but I don't even put it around there trees that I don't mulch around. Next. Staking. Staking, well, this is from a site that is not on the Gulf Coast. A properly planted tree shouldn't require staking unless the tree is not sturdy enough or the site is consistently windy. Well, we're in hurricane season. So I don't, if I planted a tree that was 8 feet tall or 6 feet tall, considering the weather that we get around here, I would consider staking it. And I'll talk about the proper staking just in a minute. Before I talk about staking, has anybody got any questions on exactly what this picture says, or anything about preparing the hole and putting the tree in there? Are there any questions yet?
We have a few questions. One is, how do you get rid of bamboo?
How do you get rid of bamboo? How would I get rid of bamboo? If you will text me or text our hotline, I will give you how I'd get rid of it. I'm not willing to put that online.
So let me just tell you that the Fort Bend County Master Gardener Hotline or Help Desk, you can reach by email at Fort Bend MG for Master Gardener, Fort Bend MG at ag.tamu, TAMU .edu. That's Fort Bend MG at ag.tamu.edu. And if you send something to us, pictures, whatever, we will answer it. And so if you direct the question to Jim, he will answer it, probably Monday.
You'll have to send it on Monday because I'm only there 1 day a week, Monday, but I will answer it, or they may leave it for me. But if you really want a really good answer, send it on Wednesday. I won't tell you why, but send it on Wednesday.
There is a pro on Wednesday.
There's a
for
pro.
sure.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, is a Texas olive tree a good choice?
Yes, it is. It is a fantastic choice. In fact, here at the demonstration gardens, we have just planted one this spring, but we have a mature one too. Absolutely beautiful. I'm telling you, the first time I saw it, I thought it's a petunia tree because it has big white blossoms on it in the spring. And it's a nice medium-sized tree, medium to small actually, and great for Fort Bend County landscape.
That brings up a point that will probably come up later, but we have a tree trail over here that has 23 trees, 23
We're
trees.
gonna give you a list of them here in a
There'll
bit.
be a list of them. It's worth coming over here to look to see exactly what they look like. Because one of the things it is good to do in selecting a tree is to, first of all, if in a particular neighborhood, if you walk around the neighborhood and see what kind of trees are planted and what they look like and how they do, then that's a good way to select it, except for one tree. Everybody in the world's got a live oak tree now because the homeowners association makes them. So look for trees other than live oak. But if you walk around your neighborhood and look at them, you can see good looking trees. And if you take a picture of the tree and send it to us, we'll tell you what kind of tree it is. Or there are apps that will tell you what kind of tree it is. But that's a very good way to decide what kind of tree you want. And if you're brave enough, just go up and knock on the door and say, what's this tree? But you know, that's another thing. Any other
Well,
questions?
Yes, speaking of live oaks, one participant said that they have 3 large live oaks and want to do a shade garden underneath with mulch, but the leaves never seem to break down. So how would you manage the massive amount of leaves without having to rake all the mulch out?
Well, when you figure that one out.
Let us all know.
when
Write
you-
a paper, because
when
you'll
you're
get a lot of
figure that, read
readership.
it to me. You don't have much choice. I mean,
Yeah.
live oaks drop their leaves, change their leaves in
In the spring.
late winter, early spring. Because I drive around the neighborhood, so if you rake them up and put them in a bag and you're in the right neighborhood, I'll drive around and probably pick them up because I would pick them up and mulch them.
Me too.
And they don't, even though they're small, they don't break down real quick. And quite frankly, I use them as mulch, but I won't use them as mulch the first year. I want them set at least a year before I'll use them as mulch.
So
But
I do have one comment on it, which is if you can buy sticky mulch. And what it will do is it kind of mats down a little bit. When the leaves fall on top, you can blow it with a leaf blower and get those live oak leaves off of there. And there's not only sticky mulch that's like shredded bark mulch, but there's also sticky hay. You can get it at Tractor Supply and use that as mulch and put that around the base of your tree. And because it kind of stays in place, by the way, it's good for hurricanes too. Because it kind of stays in place, you can blow the leaves off the top a little easier.
That's a good idea. Regarding the trees, are there any steps that garden centers take? And if so, what do they do as far as keeping the trees from being root bound?
I guess I don't understand the question. Can you repeat it?
In other words,
the
best quality trees.
Well, the question is, are there steps that garden centers take? If so, what garden centers do? I'm
think this may be
assuming that
in
has to
relation
do with the
slide
tree.
that's showing, do garden centers plant trees the way that's shown in this sketch?
Okay. I'm getting ready to tell you a story. I've planted I have 1.5 acres. I planted a lot of trees on my yard. I've only lost one that was because of the planting. And it's one that I had, quote, professionally planted. What happened is I bought a red maple. I had them planted. First of all, it's too big for me to handle. And the first year it looked great. Second year it looked great. Third year it looked great. And the fourth year, it never came out. It was dead.
Wow.
I did not have to dig it up. I pulled it up. We're talking about a tree that's about 8-10 feet. I pulled it up. I mean, not lifted up. I mean, I just took and knocked it over. And it looked like that picture that we had back there. I don't know whether I can get back to it. Well, it's not where the one that had the girdled, had the roots all around. What they did is they didn't do anything, as far as I can tell, to the root ball, this picture right here, except the roots on mine were about 4 inches thick. They didn't do anything, as far as I could tell, to with the root ball to do anything about these kind of roots. So if you do have it professionally planted, make sure that you're out there to watch them. And if they just take it out of the pot and stick it in the hole, you got the wrong people. And the problem with that is, if you have one professionally planted, it's guaranteed probably for a year. Well, if it's planted wrong, it's not going to, may not really show it for 3, 4, 5 years. And so, be careful, but most of us can't plant a tree that's 8, 10 feet tall, so we have to have somebody plant it for us. But make sure that when you do, you watch them plant it. Does that answer your question? I hope it does.
I think
more?
so. We have several questions regarding types of trees, which I think you're going to get into, so I'll skip those for now. Oh,
Well, let's leave that types of trees to the end. Let's keep this with respect to how to plant the tree and the tree care, and then
correct.
the others at
Okay.
the end. Any more on tree care?
I think we're good. Okay, yep, we can continue.
Okay, okay. Okay, I'm lost. Tell me where I am. That's what happens when you're old. Okay, here is staking. Now, this picture comes off the internet. It came from Oklahoma State, I guess, OK State. You need to take this with a tad bit of thing, because if you'll notice, they got the root ball. I don't know what that symbol is.
2 to 3 inches.
I think it's 2 or 3 inches above grade. This picture is not about planting that ball in there. This picture is about the stakes. However, if you look at some of the trees that we call, quote, have volcano mulch around, some people think that it may be because they have a picture like this and they're really just mulching up to here, which is not really bad, except you don't have the ring around it to hold water. I mean, everything's going to roll. So if they did plant it 3 inches above grade and they're mulching this way, then they may not be doing what we consider volcano mulching. But if you're going to stake a tree, some people just use 2. It's okay to use 3. It's okay to use 4. It's okay as many as you want to use. 2 is probably enough. What you do is you don't put the stake up next to the tree. You put it out in the solid ground and you run a thing around this. This needs to be flexible. And you're only going to stake it for 1 year. Maybe 2 years, depending on the thing, but this needs to be flexible. Stakes should be inserted in the solid ground. The material used to stake tie the tree should be flexible. The trunk has to move in order to get strong. If it's just sitting there and it doesn't have to work, it's like a tomato plant that you get at our greenhouse sale. It comes out, it won't stand up. It's a weak trunk.
So the lines that have to go to the stakes then attached to the tree, it has to be flexible, loose, enough for it to move, and wide.
It has to move. This shows it fairly tight, but if you use flexible enough stuff, it's all right.
Okay.
You see a lot of the ones you see planted have 3. I mean, if you have 2, you're gambling on where the wind comes from, I guess. I would probably use 3 because I don't know which way the hurricane's coming in.
Mhm.
But I would stake it just because of the weather we have.
How high up on the trunk should you stake it?
You want it as low as you can get it and make it sturdy. You don't want it way up high. You'd like it down here. So it's a matter of the tree. Will be tree
Okay.
specific, but if to be good to stake it as low as you can, that allows a lot of more movement up the top. And don't use an old garden hose. Like you see, a lot of people will take an old garden hose, they'll cut it, they'll run a wire through it, and they'll take a stake and they'll pull it as tight as they can get. Don't do that. You may girdle the tree. It's not quite good enough for that. Let's see.
So one of the things I've seen is when I buy a tree, it'll have like a bamboo stake going up and they've wrapped it with plastic tape. And sometimes by the time I get it home, I realize, ooh, that plastic tape, when I take it off, has already made some grooves in the bark. So be sure to, remove that, right?
That should go off immediately. You should not have that there. If you go on if you go on the internet and Google staking trees, you get all kinds of pictures. I mean, there's one from Florida that's got a stake that runs crisscross. And if you look at, it's from the University of Florida, they ran, I guess, an experiment or a test trial on various staking methods. If you'll email me, I can send it to you and you can look at all the methods they have and the comments they have about it. They weren't real fond of the two stake method, but
Okay.
but two stakes is probably enough. Let's see, what else is there about staking a tree? And again, let me emphasize, you want to remove these stakes within the next year. You don't want to keep it there too long. Again, because even if this is flexible, when the tree gets bigger, it may still girdle this tree. So don't do that. My daughter planted a live oak tree, left the bamboo thing. Unfortunately, she planted it under a power line, but that's another story. And she did not take the things off. And when I got there and looked at it, it was already almost completely girdled. Fortunately, we got it off in time, but she's still going to have to move it, but that's another thing.
Yeah.
Now comes the problem of mulching. To mulch or not to mulch? Here is volcano mulch, which if you want to drive down any new street where they put up 1,000 live oak trees, you'll see mulch that looks like this. That's not very good for the tree because I'll get to what it happens to it here, but it causes damages in here. This is what it should look like. This is probably not my best picture, but this one down here is a good one because if you'll notice, it is away from the trunk and it's out about, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet. And again, look at this one too. Don't use inorganic mulches. You can buy a lot of stuff like that, but done right, mulching it's a good thing. It preserves moisture. It'll cut down on the amount of water you'll have to put into it, which I'll get to just in a minute. But it's a good thing to do.
Just emphasizing again, bear the flare. Bear the flare. The flare is the
Flare, let's go back up to not that picture, but see, that's the flare right there. You would like that to show. A lot of people, when they plant a tree, don't like these to show because they think they're roots or something. Well, they think that it's bad, but don't put any mulch over the top of the container, the root ball. A good rule of thumb is to stop the mulch at the edge of the root ball if you're not comfortable with how far you want to do it.
It's a good tip.
But and sometimes you might want to, when you get the tree, the flare may not show. It may be a newly planted tree, so you might want to look for the flower, the flange, excuse me, not the flower, flange. But I bought a tree from my daughter bought a tree and they had just planted it. And actually this was in Kentucky and they planted it in sand, but the flange was underneath it. So
No.
we had to do a little bit of saving of grace. Here is what's wrong with mulch applied. See this tree right here? Well, I don't know what it's not a tree. It's I forgot what it was. But anyway, it didn't survive the mulching. Mulch is applied more heavily at constant contact. It causes heat to build up in here. It can cause the trunk to rot. It can cause it to put out roots, I forget the right word, but roots that aren't supposed to grow. And what those roots can do is girdle the tree. They're called advantageous roots. As they grow in diameter, they can develop into girdling roots, further restricting the tree's ability. And if you look at this one right here, this tree didn't make it. What happens is the tree may not die, but it gets weak. And then insects and other pathogens, they like weak trees. A weak tree, they'd rather go into a weak tree than to a good, healthy one. More on mulch. That's about all I have to say on mulch. Anybody got anything else, any questions on mulch?
No questions yet on mulch.
Well, just don't volcano mulch. And don't use inorganic mulch. I u-
Inorganic like rubber,
like,
like shredded rubber or
oh,
something?
no, they sell, you can, actually, I have a friend that mulched his whole yard with, they take and recycle tires, they cut it up.
Yeah.
Dye it, and they put it in there.
That's,
You
the-
don't want to
the
do
rubber.
a dyed mulch, a lot of these mulches you see, a bright red mulch or a dark black mulch. Those are dyed mulches, those are not good for, those are not healthy for the tree. So you want to avoid them. There are mulches that you can use that are quote red. However, they will eventually brown like this and they will decompose.
like cedar mulch will start out
Yeah.
red and then turn gray.
Okay. Then I'm going to get to watering your tree. This is not a really good picture because this is obviously a tree that it's been there a long time. So I'm going to talk about it, but this is a tree after maybe a couple of years. And you'll want to notice that the roots are out this way. I've got a better picture on the next one that talks about how to water this kind of tree. But you want to water thoroughly at planting. A good investment is a moisture meter. They're real expensive. My last one cost $12.95 or something plus tax. And if you go to a home and garden show, a lot of times there's somebody there giving away free ones. But it's a good thing to do because you want to stick it down. You don't want, with this water wants to gather down around here in our clay soil at first. So you want to put it down far enough to see whether water is setting at the bottom, not the top, because the top may appear to be dry. But if you go down 6 or 8 inches, it may be soggy. How often should you water it? Well, if you got a water meter, it's a good way to do. You go out, you stick it in the ground. If it shows it's halfway, it's not soggy, but it's halfway between soggy and dry, then you just go around. But again, it's tree specific because some trees require more water than others. And so when you get the tree, if you come out to our tree trail, there's a tag on there, and a part of that tag tells whether it needs a lot of water, minimum amount of water, or it can handle a drought or anything. Clay soil will hold water real good. That's what's wrong with the way people plant in other parts, using planting methods from other parts of the world, is they don't have clay soil and it holds water. If you remember back when I talked about digging the hole, that's what you're trying to do to see whether that's going to sit down there and be soggy. If it is, either plant a different kind of tree or plant someplace else. Unfortunately, we get emails a lot. What's wrong with this? And it's either looks like it's a watering problem, and we can't tell whether it's overwatering or underwatering because they have virtually the same effect. If you look at your tree and it's starting to get brown edges around the leaves, then there's a good chance it's a water on the tips around the edges of the tree. There's a
Of
good
the
chance
leaves,
that's of the leaf. There's a good chance it's a watering problem. So what you do is you go out and buy your moisture meter and you go and make sure you're not overwatering or underwatering. Right now, for this part of the year, this is the first year that we're not in a drought by now that I can remember. So I'm not watering anything right now. Fact of the matter, I haven't been able to cut my grass for the last 3 weeks, but so watering, it's important. You don't want it to dry out. And you don't want to overwater it. That's the 2 things you can get from the watering. Now, as far as it comes from watering a tree later, this is a one for the tree in a couple of years when it's got out. If you'll notice the ideal watering zone, a lot of people, or we used to tell people, or people used to say, water at the drip line because that's where the feeder roots are. Well, the feeder roots are out farther. And so if you look at this, that's a good watering zone. Don't go up next to the tree and just drown the tree around that. It'll do some good, but not a lot of good. So you go around the drip line of the tree, and you have to do it so that the water goes into the ground. So you need to trickle it, or there is a way. A lot of people think that if they use their sprinklers in their yard, that's enough. Well, it depends on how the sprinklers is set. Because if it just waters and gets the top 2 inches, then these roots right here are going to move to the top. We get things, I've had questions on hotline about why are my roots coming to the top? And one of the reasons they'll come to the top is shallow watering. So if you look at that, you want to get down at a good 10 inches, I guess. So it's good to do a trickler. What do you call it? Trickle. I'm having trouble speaking today. After about a few years, I don't worry about it because I look out in the forest and I see all these trees that nobody's watering but Mother Nature. But once a tree is established, watering is not quite as important as it is the first 2 or 3 years. Another thing you should do if you're going to insist on using your gardening hose is you should come out and water it real good around for about 5 minutes, then go inside, have a cup of coffee, talk to somebody, then come back out because you want to break the surface tension up and then the water can get through. But if you put it on a hard surface, then most of it will just run off. It's like a rain. It says, I got 1 inch of rain. I got 1 inch of rain about 15 minutes the other day, but most of it ran off, so it didn't help my trees. However, it's rained every day since then, so I don't have to worry about it.
Question, Jim.
Pardon?
Question. Speaking of the roots coming out, what do you do so that like more don't come out? So one person had some removed, but they're growing up through the ground. Is there something to do to prevent roots from continuing?
Well, I'm not sure that as much what you have to do is just change your watering and make sure you're getting the water down deep. I would not remove roots if it's a valuable tree. If it's a valuable tree, before I remove roots, I would talk to an arborist because these tree people will come remove the roots for you, but you want to be careful because these are feeder roots. If you don't have the feeder roots, this thing dies. And so you don't want to take all the feeder roots out.
Feeder roots being the roots that most absorb nutrients from the soil.
And these are the ones that are out here. And so I would just change my watering method. Of course, there are some trees where the roots will come up anyway. A live oak, if you look at most live oaks, they start out, that big root starts out and they just get bigger and bigger out through here. So a good thing is tree selection. You go back to tree selection. You might want to look at that, but as far as what you can do now, the best thing to do is just change your watering and make sure you're getting the watering right.
So
One
if you're
more
talking
question.
about barriers to foundation damage, there are companies, arborist companies too, who can recommend to you a barrier against your foundation, but it has to go down like 2 or 3 feet in order for the roots not to continue to have an effect. Even if you did that, the roots can go underneath, suck water out from under your house and cause foundation problems. So again, tree selection is important. And maybe when you were talking about trimming roots, that's kind of what you had in mind was, hey, let's stop the roots at the driveway. But you probably also need to put a barrier down if you're really serious about trying to restrict the tree's growth under concrete.
Yeah, and you have to be careful about it, because if you have an existing tree and you want to put in irrigation, I would talk to the arborist before I did that, because if irrigation, they're gonna come in here and they're gonna cut all these. And they're going to damage your tree, so you need to be careful of these roots. I mean, this is the lifeline of that tree.
Okay, 23, just a time check, 23 minutes left.
Okay,
23 minutes left. We're doing great.
Yes,
We're doing
and we
great.
have, and there's lots of questions about tree selection, so I think that's coming up.
All right, then
I'm
I'll
sorry,
speed
like the
up.
different types of trees.
Then I'll speed up. When to prune and trim your trees in winter. Well, I got this off the internet. This is one of the things you can find that you must take with sort of a grain of salt.
right.
Prune and trim your trees in the winter. Well, some pruning you can do, you should do as you go. If you notice it, if you got dead limbs, take them out now. If you got crossing limbs, I would think about taking them out. You should never remove more than about 25% of the foliage, the live crown, especially this time of year. But an important thing is, as you move from tree to tree, most people won't do this, but you need to sanitize your equipment, because if you've got two live oaks and one of them has some kind of disease and you prune it and then you go to the next one, then without cleaning it, then you have another tree that's got the disease. So you don't want to do that. One good sanitizing solution is 1 part Clorox to 9 parts of water, and set it in there about 10-15 seconds and then wash it off. Otherwise, cause Clorox is going to rot your tools. So you need to clean that off once you get through and make sure you oil your equipment again. Why are you pruning? I'm not sure this is necessary, because I planted 2 live oaks. I prune them once a week, but I'm making some more like a, whatever that thing, bonsai, I'm making a bonsai.
Okay.
Here is a really good picture of pruning. This is in the first couple of years. You've got, when you plant a tree, the canopy, which is where you want to walk under, is probably not where you want it, because this is probably a foot off the ground. And so you're eventually, as this tree grows up, you're going to raise this canopy. So you're going to have limbs that you're going to want to remove this year, limbs you're going to want to remove next year, limbs you want to remove the year afterward. For ones you're going to remove this year are things like this one. That's a competing, whatever you call it, trunk. This one, these are up to you. This is sort of out of the shape of the tree. But the ones you're going to remove next year, what you do is you don't remove them now, but you sort of cut them. You stop the growth. Oops. Who did that? You stop the growth. What they're doing is they're stopping this from going out there, but there are leaves here. You want to leave leaves. They are making this trunk stronger. So once you take them out, they don't contribute anything. When you cut them here, then they still contribute.
Okay.
And if you have any crossing leaves, limbs, this picture is hard to show because that's a 3-dimensional, this is a 2-dimensional. But another thing you want to look for is, if you see this here, I don't know whether you can see my pointer, that's a bad joint. It's a V joint.
Mm.
And you would like to get rid of V joints. I would probably take it out now. You could treat it as a one you're going to take out later and save some of it, but I'd probably take it out, especially up here. I would take them out up here, because if you get 2 going like that, then you got a double trunk. Unfortunately or fortunately, but this is gonna quit eventually, because once it gets so high, you have to get on a step ladder, then nature's gonna take over and you're gonna have to bring in some commercial people to trim it for you. Let's see, is there any other thing about this trimming I want? This remove shot. Oh, here is how you trim it. Now, this picture here is for a fairly good sized limb. What you do is you make a first cut here and a second cut there. You're doing this with a saw, not a lopper. And when that falls off, then you can cut it here. If you don't make these cuts, if you try cutting down through here with a chainsaw, then that'll, when it gets most of the way down, the weight will cause it to fall and
it'll tear.
it'll tear the roots up there. What you want to do is cut it right close to the collar, but you don't want to cut it close to the collar until you get the weight off of it. For these small ones here, if you're going to do this one, you cut up close. There's a collar here, you cut up close to it so that it will, you don't want to leave anything like this. You don't want to cut off here and stop. No stumps. So you cut up close and make sure you don't take the collar out, but close to it. These things down here, somebody keeps sending stuff, says, how do I keep my live oak tree from putting these things up? I don't know the answer to that.
You don't keep them from it, you just trim them off.
You just got to get rid of them. Let's see, mains trunk, anything, remove this, extend beyond the crown. That's an option. If you have a cedar elm, which I do, it has limbs that go like this. And you should actually, that's the one thing I need to comment on. We're in hurricane season. If you have old trees with big long limbs hanging out and over, you might want to consider having somebody come in and get rid of them, because when that storm comes, if that limb's over your house may get a new roof.
Whether you want it or not.
Whether you want it or not. How am I doing? Got 18 minutes. I guess I'll turn it over to Stacy then.
So Jim and I are going to tell you about the tree trail, and then we'll stop and we can have some more questions about selections. But the first thing we wanted to share with you is the trees that we have planted out here. We have, let's see, I think this is 19 varieties, but there's 23 trees. Some of them are duplicates. We've got 3 American sycamore that are probably 10 years old. They're big, they're beautiful, and you can come and see what a 10-year-old American sycamore looks like and how big it is. We just planted the Texas wild olive. It's kind of new out there, as well as a possum haw holly, I think we did last year, and a Texas redbud. What you're going to be able to see is trees that, other than those I mentioned, have been planted for about 3 years. So you can come out and see what kind of leaf, what kind of bark, what kind of shape does this tree have for bald cypress, montezuma cypress, bur oak, Mexican oak, overcup oak, Shumard oak, swamp white oak. We have live oaks out here too. They're in the shade garden right next to the tree trail, and you can see those too. I wanted to mention to people that if you wanted to swap out a live oak tree and wanted to kind of negotiate with your HOA on that, pick a lacy oak. It's a little bit smaller size. Well, actually, it's a fair amount, about half the size. Big, beautiful tree, but it is a lot more amenable to a small lot. Yeah.
I'm going to comment about, if you're going to take out a big tree that's in your front yard because it's too big for your front yard, consult an arborist first. Because one of the problems that you can have, if it's like a live oak, is those roots have gone under the house, under the foundation. And if you take it out, then those roots eventually will probably die, creating a void in there, and you're looking for foundation problems. So if you have a big tree and you want to take it out, I would look for a professional, because it may be something that, quote, you just have to live with.
So come on out and see the tree trail. We have a lot of specimens out here in the demonstration gardens in addition to those in the tree trail for you to take a look at and see kind of what size, what age, what profile, what flowers, what traits they have that you might be interested in. With that, I want to open it up for questions.
Okay, I have a question. Any thoughts on Asian pears?
I didn't hear it, what?
Yeah, they want
Asian
to
pear
know
tree?
about advice for Asian pears. You know, pears in general have some issues. It's hard to find ones that are really eat off the tree kind of pears. A lot of pear trees produce hard pears. Asian pears are supposedly a more, fruit-worthy, pull it off the tree, bite it, it's great. I will caution people that pears in general are susceptible to fire blight. So it's a great idea to, in the spring, say the end of March, 1st of April, spray it with a copper-based fungicide under the leaves, over the leaves with a hose-in sprayer, just spray it down to help prevent it. Because once it gets fire blight, you can't cure it. You can only prevent it or treat it to prevent the spread.
What you need to do is make sure there are pear trees that are, quote, tolerant of fire blight. That's not the right word.
That would be
It's not tolerant.
resistant.
Fire blight resistant. We have 3 out here that have been here for years. They look terrible. They're ugly.
Example of what not to do.
And they've got more pears than you know what to do with. And they have both of them with fire blight. So you should check on what kind of pear tree is fire blight resistant, because if you plant a pear tree, I don't care how much you spray it, you're going to get fire blight.
Additionally, if you want an Asian pear and you want fruit, you need to have a different pear too. Some other variety like Gulf Beauty or something, that because the pollination needs to be from 2 different specimens of pear. So you would want to have 2 at least.
What
But
about the Geiger tree? Is that a good tree?
I didn't hear it.
Geiger.
I am not familiar with that. I'm sorry.
That one. Viter
Okay.
Vitex.
I think he said Geiger.
Geiger.
Pardon?
If I'm saying it correctly, Geiger.
I'm not familiar with that kind of
Yeah,
tree.
me either.
Sorry.
Okay, mountain maple. Somebody has a mountain maple growing in their front flower bed. Is this tree, can you transplant? Is this a good tree to transplant to another location? A mountain maple?
Maples in general are a little finicky about that, but you should be able to transplant it, just not right now.
Depends
Right.
on how big it is.
Well, that too.
And the whole foundation issue that you mentioned, right?
Yes, so if you want to move a tree, it really can't be a whole lot more than like an 8-foot tree. And even then, that's going to be quite an ordeal to get a big enough root ball to successfully transplant it. But if you wanted to move it, just don't do it in the summertime. Even now, when the temperature is not terrible yet, it won't have enough time to build a really good solid root structure before it gets super hot and starts to stress the tree. So we always advise people to plant really November and through the winter, obviously not on a freeze day, but take care with when you do it, because that's as important as how big a root ball you get and where you're putting it.
But technically, you can
Okay.
plant a tree any time of the year, but you want to plant a tree, a small young tree or a new tree like that, so that it has enough time to get itself well established before the winter comes. And also it depends on what kind of tree it is. Because you might plant a live oak in November, but you better not plant a Meyer lemon in November.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, there are trees that any of quote the subtropical trees that you have to protect from a freeze in any way whatsoever, should probably be planted in right after the rodeo.
There you go.
Somebody did have a question about pear trees not producing pears, but I guess you did answer that with, you need to have a variety that can pollinate each other. They also had questions about squirrels eating from the peach tree. Are there any?
Ah.
Yes, I have an answer for that. It's called a 30-06.
No, no. Okay, no shooting of firearms within the city limits. So we have some ways of doing this. It's just, it's going to be a lot of work. I know back in the olden days of AOL sending you CDs in the mail, we would hang them from the tree and the flickering would scare away birds and squirrels. We don't have that now, but what you can do is you can get netting that you can put over the tree. When you're talking about peach trees, it's a different thing than what we're talking about with landscape trees. You want them to have kind of a bowl effect and be wider than they are tall. And so getting a net that's big enough to go over to keep the squirrels out is a little bit of a challenge, but that is one of the primary ways you do it.
I could tell you a story about squirrels and trying to protect it. I have a persimmon tree, so I have a lot of chicken wire. So I took a limb that had several persimmons on it, and I put chicken wire around it so that the squirrel couldn't get it. So what he do? He chewed the limb off, carried it around in behind my garage, and tore into it.
Oh my goodness.
So to answer your question, squirrels are a pain, and it's really hard to control them.
And they're smarter than they look.
And about the only way you can do them is there's some way you can bar them from getting there, and lots of luck on that, because if your tree is very big, then it's just not feasible to do.
I would like to at least suggest that on Facebook and some other social media sites, there's groups that specifically address fruit trees in the Houston area. And you may want to get on one of those, since we're not really experts on fruit trees, but landscape trees. That might be a great place to get some good advice about, pest prevention for fruit trees.
Okay, I know you said you're not, well, let me ask you about one more little fruit tree question, and if you can't answer it, that's fine. As far as a lemon tree or a Santa Teresa lemon tree, would they survive in Texas soil? Do we know?
Run that by again.
Would lemon trees or Santa Teresa lemon trees survive in the Spring Branch / Texas soil?
I could, what kind of,
So I think just basically, and you can ask about the type of tree in a minute, lemon trees, you don't plant in the ground. We can barely plant orange trees in the ground. Lemon and lime, generally speaking, cannot go into the ground. They got to stay in a pot, big pot, bring them in the garage in the winter time, because it's not so much about the soil, although you do want to have acidic soil for citrus trees. The issue really is around freezing. They just do not handle freeze well. And you're going to end up with, it dying in the top. And if you see nothing but little dark green leaves coming out near the soil line, you're toast. That means that the top of the tree, that is the hybrid part that produces the delicious fruit, is dead. And the rootstock is now trying to grow, to live, and the rootstock does not have good fruit. So these are just some tips on lemons in general.
see,
Nice, very good.
it's one of those things where people don't agree. I have lemon trees in the ground. I have all kinds of citrus trees in the ground. What you have to do is you have to protect them, and protecting them from a freeze is a hard thing to do. You have to be willing to really do it, because you can protect the tree. Most of the trees are grafted. Lemon trees, citrus trees are grafted. You can protect the graft by building up a soil, starting in 1st of December, by putting soil up about 2 feet on the tree. However, that will not protect the top, and if it freezes, you're going to lose a couple years growth. What I do is I take a tree and I wrap it. First of all, I put a whiskey bottle or some box around and fill it full of mulch, then I'll wrap it with a blanket, and then I'll put as much things as I can get around it, and I still lose the tops of some of them. I don't lose the bottoms of them. About 5 or 6 years ago, when we had that big freeze, I lost 32 citrus trees, so.
Wow.
But I still grow 'em. However, every citrus tree variety I have one in the ground and one in the pot. And right now I am starting Meyer lemons from cuttings. And I'm going to put them in the ground, because then if they freeze down to the ground, what comes back up will be a Meyer lemon.
Yeah,
And
that's great when you can propagate them yourself.
But there, you might look at next year at the fruit, we have a fruit tree sale in February, I think.
It's in February, that's
And
right.
Some of the citrus that we sell there is on its own rootstock. That means if it freezes down to the ground, what comes back will be the same thing. But you still have to protect it, otherwise, if it freezes down to the ground, you're just going to lose another couple of years. So citrus is hard to grow. It can be grown, but it takes a lot of work.
Okay, well, that is all the time we have for questions. If anybody has any other questions, you can direct them to the Fort Bend County. Sorry, to the Fort Bend County Master Gardener Help Desk number, which we will put up. And then we're going to now add the,
Can you see
Survey.
the screen right now? We've got the help
yes,
desk.
here we go. Here's the help desk. And then we also have a survey. Here is a link to fill out our survey, and we greatly appreciate any feedback that you may have for us so that we can improve on our classes. We also have one more class in our series. So if you go to the Fort Bend County Master Gardener website, you will be able to register for that class as well, which is protecting plants for winter. So that's a good one. So be sure to sign up for that class. You'll also be receiving, anybody who has registered for this class will be receiving a link to this video. We have been recording it, so you can refer back to it. And you'll also have in your email that you'll receive all of the links that Stacy and Jim have mentioned. So every link that they have given us will also be in that email for you.
Great.
So we just want to thank you two again for presenting. This was a great class. I learned so much as well.
Oh, thank you. We enjoyed providing this information. We're pretty passionate about trees.
My next comment was going to be your passion and your, I mean, you can see your love on the subject, and it comes through. So it's nice to see that too. So thank you again. And thank you all for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you for our last class regarding winter protection of the plants that you work so hard to keep alive during the heat.